Welcome to 20 Minutes of Clarity, your go-to podcast for financial insight and advice.
When we take complex financial information and simplify it so you can make better informed financial decisions. I'm your host, Jason Noble, and with me today is Andy the Man Merchant. I'll just call them ATMs now. This is where we're at. And we're continuing on our series of what is still important financial information and topics, but it's not really mainstream. And this might be the closest thing to mainstream, which is around college education planning. But we still feel like it was important that we kind of just have an entire 20 minutes dedicated to this important topic. And now, if you're having these conversations with your advisor, that's wonderful. But if you're not, and you're going, this is an important thing that I want to be proactive on, go to clearpicturefinancial.com, enter in your information. One of our specialists will reach out. So, Andy, we talk with our clients about being proactive around education planning. What are some of the four things that we both do when it comes to having these conversations with tackling this important topic?
Yeah, I feel like the four that we discussed, and I think we wanted to talk mainly about, is obviously the one that everybody's aware of, more familiar with, really, right? As the 529 or the Covered All Education Plan. We'll kind of highlight really the details of that for what most people may or may not be aware of. But then we're going to dive into, I think, the other facting or options. Of you can just cash flow it. There's some times that makes sense. You could still consider taking out loans. That is a solution. It's an option. A lot of people do it. And then finally, we're going to kind of introduce maybe how you can use Roth IRAs or cash value life insurance as another solution. So I think those are kind of the big four. And sometimes we might be able to take those big four, and a lot of times we can blend them, but before we get into the details, I've told this to my kids as well. Number one way to pay for college kids, go get a scholarship, either get a SMART scholarship. So work on education, make sure grades are strong, file for as many of those scholarships that you can. If you're athletically inclined, then let's try to fight for a scholarship. So it's really trying to find a way not to burden cash flow and plan ahead. So I'm excited to jump in today and kind of help people simplify the decision making as they might have a student or students that are preparing for college.
For those who stick around to the very end, I'm going to throw a little bit of a curveball on this that you're really going to like. Okay, this is a tidbit that we're going to jump to at the end. I didn't even tell Andy about it, so he's ready to hear it too. Let's get into the carte blanche, the bland, but important, right? You don't want exciting everything, but the 529 plan. On the 529, every state has their own. And so if you're a resident of that state, you may want to consider that first. That's not that you always have to do that. You can go to another state based off investment choices or options or overall fees. Some states offer even a state tax deduction on the contributions to the 529. It's a state tax deduction. Be aware of that. The money grows tax deferred and used for qualified educational expenses. They could then use that money for tax-free withdrawals to then go and use for college educational expenses. It has to be qualified educational expenses. So it's a list. Look it up. Google that one. That's if you can find information within like 2 seconds, you don't need to listen to the whole podcast. So when we get just Google that one, it's just because you can look it up real quick.
Hey, don't run them off too quick, too early. So we want them to stick around to that end news.
You got to stick around. But the Secure Act 2.0 did throw a curveball on the 529 plans. We're saying if you have money left over in that plan after college, let's say for that child, you could then convert up to $35,000 from that 529 to a Roth IRA in that child's name, up to the annual limit of contributions in that given year. So that's a really interesting thing. Or you can't. You could keep it for their grandchild that's a twinkle in your child's eye. You can move it to another family member. So it gives you some arrows in a quiver, but that's a new one, and it just came out in 2024. So we wanted to hit that up front. But when it comes to a 529, Andy, is there anything else that you think that we consider when it comes to selecting a 529?
Yeah, no, I tell clients sometimes the best way when making decisions around something that has multiple options or multiple considerations is to kind of think about what what doesn't work with it. Why wouldn't you consider it, right, Jason? Because we can always talk about why it works, and you can always find the rosy picture. But I tell most clients that the thing with a 529 is, the things we get excited about. A lot of times it really kind of sparks interest with clients when they've had a new child, and it's like, oh, let's start saving today. At the time, maybe if they're a young family, they don't have the resources, but it is something you have to plan ahead with. There are some options to accelerate. I don't think we'll go into the full details. If you go to clearpicturefinancial.com, of course, we'll have white papers on these that'll give you more details. For kind of the inners, this is just the introduction of it. But you got to start early for most cases. You got to commit to it. We tell people that. So why would you do it? Is that some of the investment options can sometimes be limited. To your point, Jason, these are usually through a state-run group, and you may not get the best option. It may not be the best advice option that's out there. So just be aware that it may not be that growth model that you're looking for, and so looking at that difference. If you'd end up not using it for college, right, Jason, like you've mentioned, there's penalties associated with it to access the money. So being aware of that, that's kind of why the Secure Act came out, is for those families that did save, they have an option. And there's a lot of, there's lack of flexibility, and if kids today, is college, how do you know if college is the right path for who you're saving for when they're newborns, right? We don't know what 20 years or 18 years is going to give us. And so it kind of may be putting money in a bucket that you're not as motivated behind. So I still think it's a consideration on the table, but it needs to have what you said earlier, have that conversation, make sure it fits into your plan. Overall, but I kind of talk about that's the reason why we don't use it. I know you've highlighted some of the reasons we do use it, but
yeah, I think it's always good that we talk about the pros and cons and just the full picture. On the covered out ESAs, I don't use it too often because there's income-based eligibility restrictions. There's contribution limitations is what you could put in per year. But why people do like it, and I see some value in this, is you have a wider range of investment choices and investment options. Whereas in a 529, it's more narrow. It could be age-based and things of that nature, or just custom, or not even custom. It's a lot of the 529s, it's hard to customize. But on the covered out, you can buy, individual stocks, bonds, mutual funds, ETFs, whatever your heart desires, really. But it's like the small annual contribution limit. So if you're using it for qualified educational expenses, which you can use, and it'll come out tax-free again, right, on a covered out, you're really going to be relying on maxing that out. I think it's like a couple $1,000s, but then having like decent growth within it by using the more investment choices to get what you really want to get out of it. On the covered out, I could probably count on one hand, as far as what percentage of my clients are using the covered out. It's really more on the 529 between the two, but maybe you could share some insight as well on the covered out that I didn't touch on.
Yeah, you mentioned you can count on one hand. I can count on no hands. Just haven't used it. So, if we do, it's more taking it over. So the traditional is more the 529, and I'll kind of jump in here in a bit on some of the strategies that I've explored more, right? Because I started down the path. I was one of those guys that was young. Family and I said, let's go save for college. Went out, got a 529 for my oldest son, Preston, and then Pierce was born. And I said, well, we'll just kind of keep the one. I don't really want to fund another 529 for him. We'll just kind of use the beneficiary option, which is a benefit. I think some people don't know, right, in the 529s, is that you can change beneficiaries. So it's not like locked or tied to a child, but anyway, so yeah, I don't really have any addition on the covered all that, like you said, it's just not as commonly discussed.
I just don't see it too widely used, and because of the minimum of what you could put in, it's pretty nominal. It just, okay, if the government really was thinking that the covered out is going to be a better use, write your congressperson if you really care about this and say, can you increase those limits on the contributions and income-based restrictions? Beyond writing your congressman, go to Clear Picture Financial to learn more and download the white paper so that you could have a better understanding. Let's get into more of like I would say just unique, sophisticated approaches that also could be considered. and we're going to skip the loan. We're going to leave that for a little bit later because that's what most people are very comfortable and understand. But you were talking about like life insurance policies, for instance. I think that would be a good one for us to jump right into.
Yeah, no, and I think this is a good one, right? Because I'm a big fan, and I'm going to use this. I'd rather throw a rock at and hit one or two light bulbs, and maybe they kill the one bird with one stone. A model, trying to be more friendly to the bird community out there on my analogy, but I broke it.
He wants to use multiple arrows in the quiver. Coming right off the.
You want to just keep it simple.
Those arrows in the quiver. So life insurance policy could help in the event of untimely passing.
Yeah,
that's one arrow in the quiver. But what would?
I mean, a better one on the life insurance on the cash value side is I did this for both of my boys now. So I mentioned I had a 529. I started that, but then I felt what's a better kind of multiple arrow strategy that I could use with the same financial dollar. So if you want to contribute, in my case, I picked a number that my wife and I were comfortable with of contributing to their long-term education or their education. And our decision was, let's go ahead, since they're young, they're healthy, you can get these policies turned around in no time. We solved for a minimum death benefit that kind of got them into the policy that gives the tax-free benefits. And then the additional above the cost of insurance in this example, and I'll give some numbers, goes to a cash value build. So the cash value build, similar to a 529 or any other investment strategy, inside that insurance policy, it's growing. Some of the nice things about using certain types of insurance products, I'm going to focus on just an index universal life as the strategy. There's a lot of different options. But within them, if the markets are down, you can't go below zero. So they're 100% principal protected. You do have some upside participation. So they're probably going to perform similar to what you'd find, in a 529. So if you could take out the downside risk, give more flexibility. Now it's fast, then why not, right? Fast forward. Now my child's 18. We've been putting money into this. Now there's a cash value bucket. There's also a death benefit. Not that I ever want that used, but it's there. And so we built it. Now let's say they go to college and we don't have a scholarship or we don't have the cash flow option. Then we can borrow from their policy. In many cases, we can kind of structure our own loan. We could, and we'll go into detail at a future podcast, but there's a lot more loan efficiency inside of a cash value. Because it's a loan to yourself, it's not taxable. So you get a lot of the benefits. So really excited in our household for that. It's a lot more of that conversational piece too, that we have a benefit that can be used for school. But here's the thing, Jason, the reason I wanted it, my wife and I liked it so much, is that once they're done with college, if they get scholarships, then they've got a policy that most people don't buy in their 20s, that they can take over, they can continue to contribute, and they can increase their wealth even more for the future. So I definitely like the cash value life insurance as a arrow in that holster, so to say.
Yeah, we did something similar, and our children have policies as well. But then Rachel and I, on my life, I have a policy, and that also could be used for the college educational expenses, and having that as a loan that would be tax free. I also like the benefit. It doesn't hit the FAFSA. The cash value inside the policies don't hit the FAFSA application. And if you're doing a strategy like this, there's a good chance that your income's at a point where it's going to hit the FAFSA anyway, or your assets, right? But so what we're talking about is very general at this point. You got to get specifics talking to a qualified professional. But you hit a lot of really the benefits. The one thing that you listen to other people that are on TV or on the radio, and they go, no, you should just get a term policy and invest the rest. Maybe, potentially. I mean, when you're talking to millions of people, that may be applicable to a few of them, and others is not, right? And so when we're having this conversation, we don't know your financial situation or where you are right now as you listen to this, but understand that these are options and choices that you have at your disposal, taking what's complex and simplifying it so that you can make a better informed financial decision, right? And so you got to outweigh those pros and cons based off of your own personal financial situation, or work with someone that can do that with you and walk you through these decisions. I just thought there was a lot of benefits, and I like to have I like to have outs. What I mean by that is the 529 is going to be used for their education, right? I could convert it to the Roth, but then I'm dealing with multiple Roth conversions on a given year up to the limit. And then I got to calculate up to 35. Like, okay, it's not going to be my accountant. And Chris, I know you're listening. Thank you for listening, but like, it's not on you. It's on me, right? Let's just be candid. So what am I going to do? Create an Excel spreadsheet on this? I'd rather just do the life insurance. And if they get a great educational scholarship, because I love my children dearly, but I don't think it's going to be athletics. But anyway, they get the educational scholarship, right? Then that could be used for down payment on a home. It could be used for other aspirations and goals that they have. And that's the reason why that I liked it on myself and also for my children. I'm not getting life insurance on my children in the event they pass. I mean, I will be broken. I wouldn't be on this podcast. I'll be in a corner crying somewhere, right? In that situation. See, I'm just switching stuff now behind me, right? Because we're just getting right into it. Now, for those that are listening on the podcast, behind me, I have 20 minutes of clarity and the sign just switched. For those that are watching, they're like, yeah, we already saw that. No, I don't know what's going on behind you. But that's not a traditional one, but I do like that we brought that one up. And then another one is around the student loans. Like you have Parent Plus loans that you could be looking at as a parent. The student themselves, the child themselves could be taking out the loans. They would have federal loans, Sallie Mae, and then personal loans on top of that. There's a lot of changes going on in the student loan spectrum. One of the advisors in our office here, Sean Thompson, is actually getting a certification within being certified in student loan as a specialist. And, you know, we work with clients that have student loans and then they go into education. That's their focal point. And if they work in certain schools for a certain period of time, then that loan gets absolved. What we're also seeing in the public sector is these companies are saying, hey, come here. And if you come here and you work here for a certain period of time, we'll help you pay off your student loan. So those are some of the things that are coming into consideration on that end. It would be like, if this child is getting student loans, or if you're doing a Parent Plus loan, can there be a serious conversation with that child about, hey, listen, you're going to college, you're going to take it serious, but not only that, you will be getting an internship. You will be getting like work experience while you're in college. So you can start paying money towards that student loan while you're in college before it starts accruing the interest rate, number one. And two, when you leave college, you could go right into the workforce instead of doing, I don't know, what is that thing they call when they just go for Europe for like a month or whatever, and they just kind of take a break? Like, no, you got student loans. The clock is ticking. You got to get to work, right? So do an internship while you're in college. And if you get a good internship with a good firm, maybe that's a chance to transition right into the workforce.
You know, I love what you brought up there too, Jason. I think that I hope that was a little bit of your secret that you're holding on it, but I don't think it was, because I know you got more. So those that are tuning in are still checking out what you got to throw down. But, you know, it goes back to what we were talking about. You know, the reason why we pick this topic it's an important topic that's less known is most people know about just putting in a 529 plan, right? That's simple. That's easy. But having a blended strategy, taking into account, you know, all these options. I mean, I love the fact that you highlighted that a lot of new programs are coming out there that if you do have a student loan, they'll forgive it. So what if you go into one of these programs and you have a big 529 balance? You don't need a student loan. So, right, is there a route about it? So, and then you're limited on that asset. So it's really about having that conversation. The challenge is you don't know what that's going to be when they're newborns, right? And if you don't plan, because the only reason why people usually take out loans for college is because they didn't do any planning. Right. Or they can't burden the full cash flow that it's going to cost. And who knows what college is going to cost tomorrow. Right. And so loans are just kind of there because people have to go with it. That's why they're expensive. That's why they're not, a wealth strategy that most people rely on. But if you're going to go into a program, if you talk about this with your child in high school, maybe they'll go find a career that they're starting to like that maybe has these options that if you're not checking what are forgivable student loan careers, maybe that's a good one to Google, right? So those that stayed involved in this podcast now know, Google that. maybe that's a conversation to have. But if you're not having a conversation with your child, like my son just is a sophomore now in high school, and we're starting to have that conversation because on his career test, it came up with two options. He came up with a professional athlete, fingers are crossed, but not holding out. But I love it. Or he was going to be a pet groomer. He has no interest in that, and I don't think that makes a lot of money, right? So anyway, we're going to find something. But having that conversation with your kids, working with a financial professional on, am I missing something? What's some other scenario you're going? But I know we're running on time, Jason, and I want to hear this wonderful news.
So this is a couple I'm working with. 4 generations went to be South Carolina Gamecocks. So like Gamecocks, their colors run in their blood. I mean, they're only an hour and a half away from there. They still got family in the area. Okay. And they got 3 boys. And I go, hey, so what are the probability that one of those 3 boys are going to go there? They're like 100%. Absolutely. Like they were dead set on this. The boys, they go to the football games, basketball games. I mean, they are all in on Gamecocks. Okay. So I suggested, why don't we look at getting a rental property right there in Columbia, South Carolina? With that rental property, you're going to get cash flow. That cash flow will help you cash flow the debt of the student loan, right? Or to cash flow right into the to the tuition. There's that, number one. Number two, you're going to get price appreciation on the property over time. And then number 3 is now you have a place that they could live near campus and a place that you're providing, and they could house hack. They could take a room, and then people that they're going to school with that they know and like and you trust, they could rent out the other 2 rooms. Again, free cash flowing on the property. And then eventually when your youngest goes and they go out of college, you could sell the property if you want to at that point. You have that cash. If there's anything that was left over, you could then be able to take care of it. So that is their 529 plan, which is a real estate investment property that they're going to house hack when their boys get older and they live in it. So I thought if you decided to stick around for that, and that's the one that you wrote down, this is where we want you to go to clearpicturefinancial.com, enter in your information, schedule a conversation with one of our specialists so we can help. That was Andy, the man, merchant, ATMs, just printing money over there. IRS, he's not printing money. But what I'm getting at is he knows money. I'm Jason Noble, CFP, RICP, and I'll be seeing you with OBP. You know me. Later.
See ya.